today. It's an exciting world for us in the farming world today as we celebrate and we're able to commemorate a feat of a farmer in Nebraska taking levels and limits and expanding those to a higher level. My name is Chris Masters. I am the CEO of Biovante, and we're glad that you've joined us today, those that are watching online and wherever you're at. During the process of today, we would ask that if you have any questions, please feel free on Facebook to be able to ask those. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible today. But again, we're here for a certain reason. 2020, as many farmers have experienced ups and downs throughout their farming careers, we always take the option of challenges and turn them into successes. And there's been one farmer that we've been working with now for 7 years who's taken challenges to a whole nother level, and his name is Jimmy Frederick. Today, Biovante, along with Agrigold, is happy to partner together and work with Jimmy as well as Jason Schley, working with his lab. And there's some things that we're going to discuss today about how Jimmy was able to achieve some of the yields that he has achieved in 2020. As Biovante, we began the company in 2009 with the goal of taking biological products and using them into a farming operation that would allow farmers to reduce synthetic fertilizers, enhance soil fertility, and make the overall crop and production at a higher level. We feel that we've done that, but we're going to continue to push the envelope and continue to enhance our technologies. And we began the company in 2009. Since that time period, we have begun to learn, even from ourselves and from our customers, how to use the products, how to place the products. And it's been an exciting time. It's always great to get around a group of farmers and agronomists and individuals that are willing and able to push the envelope. And the biggest thing is, at the end of the day, we want to be profitable. While pushing the envelope and achieving high yields is fun, and it allows us to see where the yields and the varieties and the genetics can go to, at the end of the day, we have to be profitable. So we feel as a company that a variety of our products, whether it be one or whether it be a host of products, we feel that these products offer farmers the ability to push yields but also be profitable. So today, we want to recognize those that are with us in attendance. We have, sitting to my right here, is Mike Sudbeck. He is the Western Division Sales Leader with Agrigold. We have Dustin Bowling. He is the Western Agronomy Manager. Also, we have Jason Schley here with us. He is agronomist and co-owner of Next Level Ag Labs. We want to introduce Jimmy Frederick. He's from Rulo, Nebraska. His wife, Cheryl, is here in attendance with him. And then my wife, President of CEO, is Kristen Masters as well. So this is an exciting time for us as a company, as well as being able to partner with Agrigold and learn about where the varieties and genetics are. I'm going to allow Dustin at this time to come up and just talk about Agrigold and where they are at as a company. Dustin, if you don't mind.
Oh, it'll be hot. All right, thank you, Chris. Yep, as an Agrigold brand, we are just incredibly thankful and we're very excited to be here today. Agrigold has a rich history of providing great seed products.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dustin. Next, we're going to allow Jason Schley to speak, and he's going to begin to talk about his work in the field that he's doing in agronomy and as well as his lab.
Honored to be here. Worked with Jimmy and Chris here for a couple years. We've got a exciting what we do there is a little unique. We bring a system approach to fertility programs. We do mapping, we do consulting, and then of course we have a lab that digs really deep into the data. We look at facets of the soil that many don't look at or don't pay attention to. We visit with growers across the country. We work with them hand in hand to learn from them and with them, and then we ultimately bring that data back in a platform that can help the grower become successful. We're honored to have Jimmy as one of our 365 high-yield champions in our team, which that means that he's tested his fields through our system. He's helped us understand the level of nutrient requirement it takes to create a bushel of beans in his system, and then, of course, to reach these platforms that only a few have ever hit. So again, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jason. So at this time, the reason why we are here is to allow Jimmy to know, let the world know what we have been able to achieve, or Jimmy's been able to achieve this year. Jimmy, if you don't mind, stand up with me. Guys, we're going to unveil this today. So we want to announce today, November 9th, 2020. Jimmy, we are excited to know that today is a day that you hit 148.81 bushels. So great work for your achievement. We're glad to be a part of it. You want to talk a little bit about this year?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You know, like Jason said, it does take a team. It's a lot of work. So I can't thank these guys enough. 2020 was a struggle for real. Started out pretty wet and ended pretty dry. But every geological area has its own struggles. Just got to battle through and never give up, basically. But the beans, they were really good, 3520 Agrigolds. I was very impressed. Populations all over the board. They expressed themselves very well, lots of pods. The drier weather took some of the seeds out of the pods, but we were still able to accomplish the 148. I was really excited. I didn't think I had any chance at that, but them beans are tough. So I want to thank Agrigold too, Jason and Chris. Thank you guys, appreciate everything.
Good work, thanks Jimmy. Exciting time, going through the field, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that you saw in the field this year. We're going to let Mike talk. Mike, you want to talk about the variety and then where you're at and what you guys have seen out of this variety?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Congratulations, Jimmy, on that yield, 148 bushel.
Thank you.
Wow, that's 100 bushel over the county average in Richardson County, Nebraska. I looked that up. So that is quite the feat, especially under dryland acre with the stress we had. So that was really amazing. So as Chris said, yield contests have been a great way for all of our growers to kind of test things on a small level, to just see how high they can push those yield-enhancing things they've been trying to do, over the years. Now, this doesn't happen just by accident. All the things that we put into that ground, everything we've done to these plants, we have to start somewhere. And for Agrigold, that's us with genetics. They always say, what's the maximum level of genetics? Where's the highest yield potential? That's always been when that seed's sitting in the bag safe. As soon as they open that bag, that genetic potential starts going down and down. So, if you're not starting at a very, very high level, you'll never get to that high level. Whatever that genetic potential is, we're still finding out on the soybean. It's raised every year. We're going to find out. So a great example of that high yield potential is the 3520s that Jimmy had tried this year. I was visiting with Jimmy before this, and I guess our mutual friend within Agrigold was Greg McClure. He wanted to make sure to talk to him. He saw that bean and set an Illinois state record. And I think talked to Jimmy and said, you got to give this a try, and sure enough, had a heck of a yield at 148 bushels. So I was really impressed with us to see how that goes from east to west. It's a product that bushed out well and has proven itself here from our Extend line. So we've had a lot of growers kind of experimenting, on that small scale with corn and beans, and they take one or two things every year and continue to go up and up with that. And we're seeing some farm averages, well above 300 bushel, and some soybean average fields above 100 bushel. So that's just amazing what these genetics can do, and how we partner with those high yield management practices to get us what we want. So again, congratulations to Jimmy and all those growers out there that had unbelievable success from the high yield angle, and we're excited to keep pushing every year and seeing where we can go with how high this genetic potential lies within a bag of corn and soybeans. So I'll get back over to Chris.
Thank you, Mike. One of the things, I've been working with Jimmy now for about 7 years, and I just want to make notice to those watching, there is not really much of a glitch, but we were not able to go completely live on Facebook. We're here on YouTube, and we'll share it back on the Facebook channel here in a little bit. You can feel free to ask questions below on the YouTube link, and we'll try to get those if you have any questions for Jimmy or any of the panelists here. We began working with Jimmy now about 7 years, I guess it is, and 2016 was really the first year that I guess it was an epiphany, really. We had a struggle at the beginning of the year, and he had to turn the pivot on just to get the soybeans out of the ground. And that struggle alone began to help those soybeans really begin to express genetic potential. From that, he was able at the end of the year to hit 163 bushels. And then in 2018, transferred out of that rotation to another farm raising soybeans and was able to do a 138. And then here we are back on the same field. The rotation came back to that same field, and he was able to achieve 148 bushels on that. So, Jimmy, I'm going to hand you the mic, but I know that area of the field, I know Jason was there several times. It was as if you guys were keeping it a secret from me because I showed up and I got to see the crap beans, and Jimmy and Jason got to see all the good beans. And so anyways, why don't you tell us about that field and the focus? I think there was 40 or 60 acres that was really showing good response. Now, you had taken that section of the field and began to separate it up into different populations. Can you talk about that a little bit to the audience and let them know what you were doing in that area of the field?
Well, like every year, I tend to push the envelope a little bit. You tend to help me do that. But we started right in the center of the field. There was no rhyme or reason. A good flat area where we could cut the contest out when time came. So it actually started with 30,000 population, and I went up to 90,000. And in between there, I kind of switched my RTK over, and I did some twin rows, 60-inch beans, and changed the population, changed some in-furrow, and went on. They struggled coming up, but after that, they kind of took off, and it was game on. And in about July, when the pods started setting, Jason and I looked at them. We were having some really good pod counts, really high, some of the highest ones. So we were pretty excited then, and then August came. Last rain was end of July, and we had 2 inches to the end of September. So, and a lot of heat. So that hurt us. Otherwise, it would have been crazy where they could have been.
Yep. I don't care if I grab that mic, guys.
But we still did have some 30,000s that made 94.7, I think, right?
Yeah, so I think we had that day we began to check, and the focus, again, because you didn't let me see this, you only got to let Jason see this, but I was coming up that day to look at the irrigated, and behold to me, we end up at the dryland field, and I began to wonder why the heck I've been looking at irrigated beans all year whenever I see that the dryland beans are so much better than what the irrigated were. But different, a little bit wetter on that bottom that you have the irrigated on. But when we got there, we began to take different checks, and you had, I think, 127, 135, and then the 148. Mm-hmm. And we took these about, out of the 40 acres, we sectioned off about 5 acres of each. So you had 5 acres about 127, 5 acres of 135, and then about 5 acres of 148. What has been, though, one of the things that we have discussed, and I know Jason has kind of put his input on this, is getting the soybeans to begin to create more lateral branching. And you really had one plant in that field that began to express itself very early, low in the plant, and it began to split. You remember that in the field?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you are really trying to do, whether that's on the seed or in the row or early applications? What do you feel is some of the success of you seeing the plant lateral at a higher rate?
I feel probably 85-90% of it is in furrow. I've done trials without it and with it, and it really plant expresses itself wherever I have the in-furrow starter fertilizers with the bios. It just, the plant likes it early. It's in the soil longer. It's there, available. It's breaking the soil up, getting the nutrients it needs out of that. So that's one of them. Different populations is another thing I try to do. Each variety is different. So if anybody does try different populations, you're not going to get it out of every hybrid or a different variety. And you will have to work with it a little bit as far as putting bios with it or something. So those are two of the major things. I've always said, once, just like when you open that bag of seed, that's when it starts. Or right when you start that planter, that's when it starts. So I always think, let's get it right to begin with, and then we'll worry about struggles later on in the year. And I think the reasoning behind the differences in the levels was time of application throughout the year. I made a load or two kind of hot. You said I was even taking the kitchen sink with that one. Well, I took more in the kitchen sink, but that's what it come down to, timings, the stage of that plant, and the weather.
I think you took the kitchen sink and the pantry. I think that's what it was.
I did too.
I think you took it all.
I think it took an hour and a half load sprayer.
Yeah, you did. So in your area, though, and I wouldn't say that you're new to Agrigold, and again, Mike gave a shout out to Greg. Greg's been really influential. He's in Illinois, and he's pushing things in Illinois. But when you talk about the maturities, where have you gone over the last 5 or 6 years in your maturity ranges in your area?
I like to state the earlier maturities. I just like to get it flowered sooner. Last few years we have caught the August rain. This year we did not. So the 4.0s or 4.1s, they would have done less. So I try to get everything ahead because you don't know when the weather's coming or what it's going to do. So let's get her going. Let's get to flowering. Let's get to podding. Why we got some rain, and it can work either way. I mean, it's all down to weather when it comes to maturity.
Sure. So, Jason, if you will, I know probably a lot are wondering, you've taken a lot of soil samples with Jimmy. You've digested a lot of his tissue samples. What are some of the things, though, whenever you begin to look at high-yield growers, that it seems to be showing up on a regular? What are some of the common themes, especially with Jimmy? You don't have to talk about everybody else, but what are some of the things when you start to see in that 80, 100 bushel, 120, 140, is there certain peaks that you're beginning to see early on and how that translates to the end? Do they correlate or they split apart?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the key things is nutrient density is important, meaning how much nutrition can you fit in that plant. How you do that is again, it's relationships. You can't just shove too much of one nutrient in there and anticipate this crop to be more nutrient dense. It's a ratio of all the other nutrients. The other thing that's a common trend, I think, is it doesn't matter if it's corn or soy, really. But if I'm an average grower, meaning I'm shooting for 60, 70 bushel beans, and then you got a guy like Jimmy or Greg, like we're talking about, that are in the hundreds. What we tend to see is we might start the same as far as nutritional levels, my plant versus a Jimmy or a Greg. But ultimately what happens, we get into about R3 on these soybeans, and we start to intersect, meaning the champion growers keep going up in their nutrient uptake where perhaps my own might start teetering down. So again, there's kind of a cross section in that plant's life at R3 that the healthy, high-yielding beans keep going up with nutritional levels where the other guys are tending to drop. And I think, that comes back to a little bit about what he's doing, The other thing is it's not all about nutrition. Nutrition is there to maintain the plant's energy, to conserve the plant's energy. If you don't have enough energy in that plant, you're not going to have the yield. On a system like Jimmy's, for instance, he's getting a lot more energy out of his system. For one, he's applying it, but for two, he believes in the carbon aspect. He's building carbon in his soil. And then for three, when you have your microbes bringing your plant the food, that plant has to exceed less energy or use less energy because the microbes are bringing it to it. It doesn't have to work as hard to get that food. So again, if the energy level stays up and the nutritional levels are up, you can maximize the plant's health and its yield. But if only one goes up, you're always going to fall a little short, and that's the struggle of 100-plus bushel beans.
And I think that's one thing, we begin to look at certain energy curves. Obviously, seed treatments are very important to give us a great ROI. And I know there's a majority of farmers probably watching this, and obviously in the United States, that don't have in furrow. Now, I think in the past, we look about 7, 8, 10 years ago, people began to use these, gave up on them because they never returned an investment to them. However, we have to take into consideration certain technologies at that time and equipment that were being used to deliver those liquids and starters compared to now. There's a lot of newer companies and a lot more new technology that's doing a much better job at getting things close to the seed, getting it on the seed. So some of you all watching may need to readdress or reevaluate, should I or should I not? And I think even with Jimmy, he saw some on his corn yields this year that Jason, we began to work with the lab. We didn't need what we thought compared to the last 2 or 3 years, and he switched up some of his fertility programs and really ran all of your liquid fertility on the planter for the most part. I don't think you really can put a lot of dry even on corn, but it was based upon what we found, what the lab was projecting, what it was showing, and the availability. And that's where it gets it gets messy easy, is the fact that we can look at a report, but there's no true accuracy to what's actually being delivered to the plant. And that's the value, I think, of using the biologicals. It energizes the system so that way we can either break certain things loose and make them available, but it's working in symbiosis with the plant and the root. And that's where I think that things begin to change. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, either Dustin or Mike, if you want to take this over. As a company, what have you guys seen on some of the genetics and the variety side of things? Are you seeing more guys, even from where we are at here in Nebraska and or south, are they hovering and more? You're seeing more trends of guys going to shorter varieties, or are they trying to stay long?
Yeah, I would say just in general over the past few seasons, we're starting to see growers do a couple different key things. They're starting to plant earlier. That trend is definitely still there. But they are also starting to shorten their maturities up a little bit. I think when you think about like Craig McClure, when he started, there was a lot of folks in that mid-south to southern Illinois area that were planting a lot of mid-group 4s. And we've seen what Craig's been able to do with 3.5, so a full point of movement in maturity. So I think that we're going to continue to see that trend as we go forward. Sure.
Well, I don't know if there's been any questions. I know that we had a little bit of a hiccup with the Facebook, so excuse us for that. So there might be some questions asked on YouTube. Has there been anything up to this point? Okay. Many of you might ask questions. We're going to repost this back on our Facebook account. But Jimmy, is there anything more that you want to add? I think it's one of these things is everybody asks, okay, well, you've seen 163 in the field. You've seen 127. Now you've seen 148 on dry land. Where is Jimmy going to stop? Like, where is this going to be? And I think one thing that needs to be told is the fact that your averages, even just working with our company, is not something that you designated, hey, this is just high yield, just 40 acres alone. You have seen corn and you have seen soybean yields begin to come up across the farm by using the biologicals, BioMate, BioRed, the soil health, the soil fertility, BioCore on the seed. Where has Jimmy come over the last 5 or 6 years and just your overall averages? And then how does that translate into profit? Everybody wants to know. You got to be profitable. We have to continue. So how has your yields changed over the last 5 years by using the program or the system?
Well, they've definitely got higher. I feel a lot more comfortable, changing the way the past was by using the biologicals. I can make different decisions, and I know the outcome will still be to the plus. But you're right. You got to be profitable, and you got to know the quality of the products you're using for sure. So make sure you do that. But in the next few years, if Mother Nature agrees, she don't always agree with me, but I think we can push this higher. I don't think we're near the ceiling. We may be just getting started. I don't know. But there's going to be struggles every year for sure. So, I do tell guys, if you're going to start something and try something, patience is key. You've taught me that. It may not be quick and right away, but it'll be quicker than giving up, because it'll never get there if you give up. So just keep trying. There's always something new.
Thank you. Well, one of these things was at the beginning of the year, if we looked at that same field, again, you said you were probably just hours or days away from going back in there. I had pushed you to